length conversions in the metric system. So we learned customary, and this is what everyone else in the world uses except for the U.S. Is metric. And the great thing about metric is it's based on the system of 10. So you can also use a proportion to convert metric measurements, the same way we used a proportion in customary. But everything is based on, like I said, this 10 system, where 1 kilometer is 1,000 meters, 1 meter is the standard, is 10,000 centimeters, and 1 centimeter is 10 millimeters. And so if you get in the habit of writing the conversion where you put the first, it will be much easier to determine, put the 1 in first, it will be much easier to determine whether you multiply or divide by the power of 10. So if I'm going to centimeters to millimeters, I say 1 centimeter equals 10 millimeters. And then 8 centimeters is what I want to find out. So I go, what's the relationship between 1 and 10? How do I get from 1 to 10? It's times 10. So times 10 would be 80, and I would multiply. In this example, I'm going from millimeters to centimeters. And it says 1 centimeter equals 10 millimeters. So I've got millimeters, so I want to know, how do I get from 10 to 1? Divide by 10. So if I've got 190 millimeters, divide by 10, I get 19 centimeters. Let's look at what it means to multiply and divide by 10. If you're multiplying by 10, by powers of 10, you would just multiply the first digits, the 3 times 1 is 3, and then add the zeros. So it would be 300. So really you're just adding a 0 to the number at the beginning by 1 0. And here's 1 0, and you're going to add 2 zeros. So my answer is 1 0, add 2 zeros. So it's 3,000. And see if that makes sense. And 3 times 1 is 3, and then you have 3 zeros. Now this one, so you've been moving the decimal point. You moved it 1 place over and added a 0 for 10, and 2 places over and added 2 zeros for 100. So if it's 3.1 and you're multiplying by 10, you would just move the decimal point 1 place to the right, and you get 31. For 100, you would move it 2 places to the right, and you would get 310. And if you estimated, you would know that 100 times 3 is 300, so 310 is really close. And then for 1,000, which 1,000 is the most that you're going to do in metric, it would be 3 places, so 1, 2, 3, and so you'd have 31, 1, 2, 3, 3,100. Now, dividing by powers of 10 is you're going to move your decimal place to the left. And if you had this 400 divided by 10, these zeros would cancel out, and it would just equal 40. And 1 0, you'd go, instead of going to the right, like multiplying, you'd go to the left to divide. So 1 place over would give you 40. Then if you were doing this, you'd cancel those out, you'd go 2 places over, and it would give you 4. Now, if you have a decimal point, it's still the same thing. If you divide by 10, you move it 1 place to the left. So it's 4.15. And if it's 2 places moved to the left, 1, 2, it's 0.415. And if it's 3 places, you'd move it 1, 2, 3, and you need this little loop-de-loop to hold your space, and so you'd have 0.0415. So that gives you an idea. That's just a quick lesson on multiplying and dividing by powers of 10. And remember, to multiply, your numbers are going to get bigger, and to divide, your numbers are going to get smaller. And your decimal point moves by the number of zeros that you have. ratios in the metric system. So the ratio of, and I've got meters and kilometers. And here's meters and kilometers. And I know 800 meters, and I know that there's 1,000 meters in 1 kilometer. So I've got to say, how do I get from 1,000 to 1? I divide by 1,000. Divide by 1,000. So I've got to divide 800 by 1,000. Well, I can do that by moving my decimal point. So I would start here. I'm dividing, so it's going to go to the left. 1, 2, 3. So it's 0.8. And that makes sense because I have less than 1,000 meters, so I'm going to have less than 1 kilometer. Okay, centimeters to millimeters. So I've got centimeters to millimeters, and up here it says 1 centimeter to 10 millimeters. And I have 290 centimeters. Well, how do I go from 1 to 10? I do it times 10. So 290 times 10, since I'm multiplying, I'm going to go move my decimal point one place to the right. So I have 2,900 millimeters. And then if I work, oh, that's this one. So if I work backwards and I say centimeters to millimeters, and I've got blank centimeters to 120 millimeters, and my relationship is 10 millimeters to 1 centimeter. So how do I get from 10 to 1? I divide by 10. And 120 divided by 10, I'd move my decimal point one place to the left, and it would be 12. And that's for this one. And then lastly, I've got kilometers to meters. So here's kilometers, here's meters. I've got 1,000 meters in 1 kilometer, and I've got 3.6 kilometers. So I multiply by 100 here, so I have to multiply this by 100. So move it 2 places to the right. Oh, it's 1,000. 3 places to the right. So 1, 2, 3. Add in the 2 zeros, so it's 3,600. So here's your homework check. Do your best to identify, am I going to larger or smaller units? Do I divide or do I multiply by the units of 10? And make sure that you're able to do this in a word problem also.